The statistics we generate represent the population. They identify issues we want to look at. As Commissioner said, we are able to generate those statistics, which can be compared over time, and whoever again goes back to correct the data will be able to find the same findings. Now, after identifying these individuals, the households, then we do what we are calling today, mobilize people to be part of this survey and tell them that actually you are not representing your family. Whoever we have selected today represents the population of Uganda, and the information we are collecting on those individuals are aggregated to ensure that all the respondents are protected. So in that way, we gain the confidence of the respondents, and that's why Ugandans have been participating in this survey at a rate of about 90% for all the sampled households.
Right.
It is also important to note.
Yeah, so listen, I just wanted to cut you off. We'll come back to that, I guess. So the idea again is that we have quite a lot of things to cover, and so for the benefit of our viewers, we've got so many touch points on the activities that are happening from UBOS over the next year that it will be impossible to exhaust them. What we're trying to do today is to make sure that there's a good enough overview for you to pick interest in what's going on so that you can then be able to go and try and learn a bit more. Like I said earlier, we are all in class today. Some of the things might almost not make sense to you, but hopefully you can be able to learn a little bit and know why this activity is going to be extremely important for us as a country and why you as a Ugandan should take particular interest. I want to move on now and pivot because we only have an hour to go and we have so much to cover. So I'm going to come back to our ED and Deputy ED now to talk about one of the other things or activities that UBOS is going to be taking part in or partaking in over the next year, and this is the Uganda Business Inquiry and the implementation of the Plan for National Statistics Development and what this means. Again, sounds very scientific, but we have experts who are good at these things and can be able to break them down for us into simple English. So again, we'll go back to our focal person, who is our ED, Dr. Muchiza, to do a very brief overview of what the Uganda Business Inquiry is, and then we'll check in with Ms. Aliziki Kaudalubega in Iganga, who is the Director of Economic Statistics, to also give some insights on this particular activity. So, Dr. Muchiza, if you can shed some light for us on what the Uganda Business Inquiry is about.
Uganda Business Inquiry is simply an enterprise survey that looks at the businesses in the country, the activity in which these businesses are engaged, employment levels, and again the demography of of those who are employed, and finally, from this activity we get what we call gross output of the economy, which is a very big benchmark again for combining value added and a gross domestic product of the country. The UBI, the Uganda Business Inquiry, in fact, it's in the last phase. We started the survey in February this year and supposed to be concluded in January next year. We want to cover 12 months. We are mindful that businesses have highest mortality rate than any individual unit. So we are getting challenges, and because of course, the economic challenges, you visit the enterprise, you find it closed. It now becomes a problem when you have a plier sampled. Also, the other challenge is the response rate, because the business community, the temperatures due to economic hardships are not favoring good responses. And therefore, again, why this interaction is important is to encourage the participants, those farms in regarding those engaged in agriculture, in manufacturing, construction, services, financial services, ICT, to participate and help the country get information that will make us understand how this economy is standing and is faring. Again, as you said, there's an expert in this, so I think they can say more to that.
Right. Yeah, so let me hand over to our Director of Economic Statistics, Madam Aliziki Kauda Olubega, who is currently at our Iganga Center, as you heard earlier on when we started the broadcast. So if I could come to you, Madam Aliziki, to just tell us a little bit about what sort of data you're going to be collecting under this Uganda Business Inquiry in 2022, and also how you're going to be collecting this data. Over to you. I think you might be muted. You might need to unmute yourself in Iganga.
Hello, now you can hear me?
Now we can hear you. Go ahead. I think you might have muted yourself again, Aliziki, so you might need to check your microphone again one more time.
Yes?
Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm saying we're looking for information we are looking for information on activities, what establishments we are looking at the locations of these establishments. We are looking at the employment.
I think we might have to come to you. Your sound keeps breaking on and off, so let's give you an opportunity to try and fix that. While you do, let me come to our Deputy ED to talk a little bit about the National Statistics Development. Yes, we can hear you, but because you're breaking on and off, let's give you an opportunity to fix the microphone, and then we'll come back to you after we hear from Mr. Nabongo a little bit about the National Statistics Development and what the agenda is there. If you could just shed some insights on that for us, and then we'll try and go back to Iganga, and then also maybe get some feedback over in Kabarole.
Thank you, Ben. National Statistical Development is a framework with which the country undertakes to develop the statistical infrastructure for the country. That is in terms of planning to collect all the data that we need. We come up with a framework for it. Within this framework, we expect every member of the national statistical system to be able to come up with a plan for collecting, processing, and disseminating and utilizing data. And when we talk about the members, we have the ministries, we have the departments, agencies, local governments, and even private sector. The essence is to make sure that we get enough information to inform decision-making, service delivery. But the other dimension where users come in is that when we get this information and disseminate, it informs demand for services. So the users can also use this to demand for services. So this is the essence of the plan. Now this plan, or this framework, is developed centrally by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics in consultation with the different stakeholders. And within it, we make sure that we respond to other development frameworks. For instance, the National Development Plan, the SDGs, in that we must be able to show how far we go in service delivery. And this can only be done when you produce statistics that help measure not only planning but also to measure the outcomes of the services. So this is what the framework is about, and every member of the National Statistical System, as outlined earlier, has a role to play. And at the Bureau we have the head of the department responsible in charge. I would request that for a minute he may make an addition to what I've mentioned. Mr. John Maende.
Sir John Maende, if you would please let me bring the microphone. There's a microphone right over here. You can just shed some insights on this for us. That would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. As the deed has mentioned, thank you, Ben. As the deed has mentioned, indeed, the Bureau has a plan for developing statistics across the nation. And this plan this plan encompasses the entire national statistical system. Now, what is the national statistical system? The national statistical system includes all producers of statistics, users of statistics, and suppliers of statistics. But it also includes the statistical frameworks that underpin data production and development. And therefore, this framework is comprehensive. It covers all the facets of the national statistical system. As the deed has mentioned, all players were involved, and this framework has been already rolled out, and it is now being implemented. As we talk now, we are implementing the third plan. The third plan has been implemented under agenda of innovation, modernization, and transformation of the national statistical system. And therefore, the innovative methods that we need to acquire as the national statistical system in producing data is very important. We need to harness new data areas, namely the data, the big data, as well as the citizen-generated data. The Bureau is working very hard to ensure that the national statistical system is able to generate the data that the country needs. And we have put in place frameworks, including the citizen-generated data, that will guide the other players like the CSOs, which have been also developed, and their capacities have been increased, and very soon they are going also to produce statistics. Right. Now, permit me to say that not all statistics produced is official. No. Until you go through the meticulous methods and approaches that satisfy the utility of the public, that is when we shall certify that. Right. And therefore, as we do this, we have other frameworks which we have developed, namely the statistical data quality assurance, which will operationalize the national data quality policy that has been also been put in place by the Bureau, and we expect all players in the national statistical system to play by the rules of data production. And therefore, it is important that the stakeholders and the users of the data get to know. And also, I wanted to highlight some of the key areas that this plan is actually looking at. One is about enhancing or strengthening data production and development within the national statistical system. Right. There are areas of data which have remained behind that need to be developed, and some whose methodology have become outdated, and therefore we need this very framework to guide that area. We also look at coordination, right, cooperation and collaboration. We know that the Bureau cannot and other stakeholders like ministries, departments, agencies, and the local governments. And therefore, it is of resources, statistical resources. Yeah. You know, resources are scarce, and therefore coordination is key. Lastly, this framework provides for use of statistics. We want to build a capacity of the users of statistics to be able to demand even more statistics, and we want to equip them to be able to be statistically literate. Yeah. We want to democratize statistics. The statistics for the people and to be used by the people for planning, development, and decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think you could have put it any better. When you think about the amount of data that has to be collected and how big it is, it makes your brain almost overheats. And like you mentioned, coordination becomes a very important aspect. So let's check in with our Director for Methodology and Statistical Coordination Services. Mr. James Mwonge is in Kabarole. James, good morning. How is Kabarole today? You're responsible for methodology and statistical coordination. If you can just pick up on where Director has left off and tell us a bit more about how you're going to be able to manage this headache of the implementation agenda for the PNSD3, because as we have heard, coordination seems to be the most important aspect of this. So what's the plan for us to be able to implement this agenda very well? Over to you, James. Welcome.
Thank you, Ben, and good afternoon, Uganda. As my colleagues have mentioned, the plan for national statistical development is the real master plan. But the National Statistical Office, as they have mentioned, includes all of those agencies that collect data, that supply the data, that produces the information. So it is all of us. And as they have mentioned, coordination is quite key. But how is it going to be implemented? We are going to implement it through structures. We have to work as a team. The coordination has to start right from the political level, where we shall have the minister responsible for statistics guiding the steering committee. We also have the level at strategic level, where the board chairperson of the Bureau will also be leading at that level to provide oversight. And then the interagency committee, because since it's involving many agencies, we are working to ensure that we get representation from all the ministries and agencies that constitute the national statistical system, so that we regularly meet and deliberate on issues that affect statistics. And below that, of course, as the coordination and methodology, we'll be working with all the ministries and agencies to support them to see how do we move this process forward. There's new data demands that have come up. utilize all these statistics and translate it into meaningful figures that can inform planning at all levels. So implementation is going to follow a structure that starts from the bottom with the ministries up to the policy level, the political level, where the ministers will be giving us overall guidance.
Right. Thank you very much, James. Yeah, no, great insight. And again, for the benefit of our viewers, just to point out that this is how big these activities are. And while they sound very high level and technical, we are all a part of this, and it's extremely important for us to take note of how it affects us. Let me try and go back to Iganga and check in with Ms. Aliziki Kawada-Olubega, who was telling us a bit about the Uganda Business Inquiry. Ms. Aliziki, if you can just pick up on where you had left off before we can now talk about why the public should be interested in this and their involvement. And we can bring in some of the district leaders after this, but we'll hand over to you for now to sort of wrap up what you were telling us about the Uganda Business Inquiry and how you're going to be collecting the data and what data you're going to be collecting. Over to you.
Thank you so much. You can hear me now well?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Go ahead, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm happy to be communicating to the entire country about this economic activity. Here we are collecting information from business establishments. Of course, we are having a sample that we generated after having an enumeration of all establishments, and the sample is a national representative. Here, when we are coming to the establishments, we are looking at the activities. What are these establishments doing? We are looking at the location of businesses. Where are you located? We are looking at your income. We are looking at the business incomes and expenses. We are looking at the employment and earnings of these establishments. We are also looking at the coping mechanism, having gone through this COVID, the one we are living with. How are we coping with the situation as businesses? We are looking at the assets, the value of the assets of these business establishments. We are looking at the equity and liabilities of the business establishments. And we are looking at the ownership, because gender is very important. We want to know at gender level, disaggregation, how are enterprises being owned by gender disaggregation. We are looking at the purchasing of the goods and services of these establishments. And how we are doing this, we are actually looking at the key economic sectors in the country. We are looking at sectors like the agriculture, the fishing, and the forestry. We are looking at sectors like the manufacturing. We are looking at the insurance. We are looking at the trading, the trade, wholesale, retail. We are all looking at it. We are looking at the education services, the health services, over around 15 key sectors that we are collecting the information from. And on that, how we are doing it, we move to the establishments, and when we are collecting this information, we can use our staff to collect the information from the establishment. That is if you are giving it to them, and it comes directly to the Bureau of Statistics servers. But at the same time, we have areas where we use the paper, because we need also an interaction where our respondents actually interact with the questionnaire and fill in. Actually, if you are not at the establishment, we allow that interaction as well. This is going on all over the country, in all districts of the country, at that national representative sample. And actually, when we are doing the release of this information, we intend to have it in an aggregated form, so that we don't disclose the identities, the specific areas where these companies are located, because by the Bureau, we reserve the confidentiality, and the nation should know that when we are aggregated form, and so we don't disclose any information to the public of any particular company that gives us information. So all information for establishments are safeguarded at the Bureau with all the utmost confidentiality, and it's only used for statistical purposes and in an aggregated form. Very important to have the Uganda Business Inquiry, because by this, we are informing the planning, the policies, the monitoring of the business sector, and also to guide the allocation of resources by government in support for all policies that support these small, whether big and medium enterprises. They are based on the Uganda Business Inquiry information to be able to guide the government and the private players to actually facilitate the businesses in this country. And for very that important information, we are here requesting that the public actually provide this information that is going to help us to formulate and also keep on updating information on our establishments in the country and for guiding of policies.
Right. Thank you very much. And that's some great insights. And again, you mentioned the public and their role in all of this. It's why we are doing this e-conference, so that every Ugandan has a clear understanding of what we're trying to do and why it's important for them. I'm hoping we'll be able to hear from the Honorable Minister of State for Planning, who I believe is somewhere in Kabarole. But before we get to him, I wanted us to have that final session for our discussion today regarding the role of the public in the statistical value chain. For you and me as the average Ugandan, why is it important for us to take note of these discussions and these activities and what your role is in those? And to kick us off, to highlight the importance of this, I'll bring back our Deputy ED, Mr. Nabongo, to shed some light quickly on how does the average Ugandan get involved in this statistical value chain, especially as we plan for these activities, and why it then becomes extremely important. And then after that, hopefully, we'll be able to then hear a bit from some of our district leaders who are scattered around the country in the different centers. And then, of course, also hopefully we'll hear from the Honorable Minister of State for Planning, who I believe is with our team in Kabarole at the moment. But first, Mr. Godfrey Nabongo, if you can just shed some insight on why it's important for every Ugandan to pay interest to what we are doing and their role in this value chain.
Thank you very much. In statistical production, it is about the people and what there is about them, how they live socially, politically, economically. So being about them, it is about that they have the interest at all levels. Because even we who compute and disseminate, we are people. Where we pick, it is from the people. So the result of what is collected, I've been working with the people. And I think in this regard, again, I would love that we hear from the chief administrative officers who at that level normally manage statistical production in the local governments. And when it comes to the public, we work with the leadership of the people, the representatives of the people. And I know we have LC5 chairpersons, so they can also be able to share the expectations and how they fit into the statistical production value chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nabongo. And so, again, what we want to do is to be able to go around and listen to some of our district leaders, some of our local leaders who are joining us, and we want to thank them because of how busy they are to be able to do that. And so we'll start, let me start with Arua, where we have the LC5 chairperson, Honorable Alfred Okwonzi, and then we'll go around to the different regional centers. We have many different regional leaders and local leaders that are joining us, so we can get some thoughts from you in terms of how important it is to get the local population involved in these activities and what we're going to be doing, especially with your population, to ensure that we are able to do this. So, Arua, if you're able to turn on your video so we can be able to see our district chairperson, and then we can go around and then hopefully check in with the Honorable Minister who is with us in Kabarole, I believe. And we'll be checking with Honorable Amos Lugolovi, who will be joining us from Kabarole. But in the meantime, Honorable Alfred Okwonzi, good to see you. You're looking very smart today. Good morning.
Morning to you, Ben. Nice seeing you today also. I first of all would like to thank UBOS for convening this e-conference. As a district leader, I must say in the past efforts were only made to collect data and process the data. And when it comes to use, we are not so much involved. So I want to thank you in advance for this consideration to bring us on board. I must say, this will not stop there. When this data is collected, we should all be brought on board in terms of dissemination of the data so that we own the data and we make decisions to utilize the data. I want to concur with you that so many things have changed. There's need to go on ground to do data collection. I must say there are challenges that I have foreseen. One challenge is in the area of your definition for a village. I've been looking at it, the definition for a village at national level is comprising of 50 to 90 households in a village. But in Arua, there's a village that has a total of 335 households. Now, when it comes to planning, the data team you will be using will be so much stressed. The resource you will be allocating for them will be at the level of that definition at national level. And therefore, what are you going to do for such villages is what I want to hear from you. Now, you are going to collect the data, all right. But I must say, the team that you are going to use to collect the data is what I'm having concern over. When you want to collect data, first of all, the data team must have trust and confidence in what they are collecting. And if they don't have confidence and trust in what they are collecting, then you realize that what they will be collecting will not really meet your expectation at national level, and it will not also help us. So first of all, we need confidence and trust in the data that we are collecting. And then we should also have at the back of our minds, why are we collecting this data? And therefore, this calls for a lot of capacity building and the kind of persons you are going to pick for this data collection. Now, the other thing I would like to bring to your attention, there were already from the data collected before, there are some work in progress. I see some coordination gaps at the national level, like under UBHS. If you look at some of them are health center 3s, some are health center 4s. Now, this is at the Ministry of Health level. But when you go to NMS, you realize that the allocation of resources for this health on the ground is health center 4, but at the national medical stores is pulling drugs for health center grade 3. And how are you going to do this? Because if you don't correct some of these issues, you will be mark timing anywhere.
Right. Honorable Alfred, I'm going to have to ask to...
UBS was talking about...
Yeah, Honorable Alfred, I'm going to have to ask to cut you off because of the limited time I have. I need to go to a lot of the local leaders around the country. But I'm really impressed by your knowledge of what's happening with this process, and it's very clear that you're serving your people very well in Arua. Forgive me for having to cut you off because of time, and hopefully that's okay. I want to cross over very quickly to Kisoro, where we have Mr. Abel Bizimana, who is the chairman in Kisoro. And again, in the interest of time, I would like to be able to cross over to Honorable Rugolomi, who is with us in Kabarole. But before we do that, before I ask our ED to welcome him, let me try and go around the country very quickly. I'll ask our district leaders. I know you are very, very important people, but I'm going to kindly ask that you keep your remarks as short as we can so we can be able to go around the entire country. Mr. Bizimana, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning, brother. Thank you very much. I'm Abel Bizimana, District Chairperson, Kisoro. But on a good note again, as a user and a researcher, because I'm a PhD student of public health at Makerere University, I'm grateful that my country, my government, is doing the right job, right time, by providing opportunities for the data to manage this economy. We were worried that this COVID-19 is going to affect us and we shall not have these studies, but I'm grateful to the ministry concerned and government. Number two is I'm concerned also about control of effects of COVID-19 in these kind of patterns, because we are looking back in 5 years and looking back at the trends, but the impact of COVID-19, I don't know how these people are going to control it so that what we see now can be compared with UDHSs of other years and the surveys, the population surveys of other years. That is my main concern. And of course, we are ready. This is an event that we have been waiting for. We have been using data which is really of a long time ago. Imagine quoting 2014 when you are talking about now. So to me, I'm grateful, but the COVID-19 effect on the validity of the studies we're going to have is my main concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for keeping it very short and sweet. I hope everyone can copy from your example. And it's also very interesting to note that you are a student of statistics, so this will definitely be very passionate for you. Let me bring in a couple of our leaders here at UBOS. We've got some board members who have been able to travel around the country to ensure that we have a wonderful e-conference today. Let me start by checking in with Mr. Charles Oleni, who is our board member, and he is currently at the Soroti Center. Mr. Oleni, good morning. Your insights so far in terms of what we are doing, if you can kindly share your thoughts very briefly, and then we'll check in with Bushenyi and go to Iganga before we wrap up with Kabaroli.
Thank you very much, Ben. I would first of all like to thank the Bureau for organizing this e-conference, because it's not any doubt that as a country, we need to value the collection of data, the analysis of this data, and the dissemination of this data. And being a board member at the Bureau, I'm fully aware that we are mandated to take responsibility for the coordination of the national statistical system. And so I would like just to appeal to the public that collection of statistics is very important for purposes of national development planning. We are able to measure the progress we are making within the realm of the policies that we are implementing, but also as we are aware that we are guided by the National Development Plan 3, which currently is being executed. So these statistics help us measure how we are achieving those results. And indeed, depending on the findings that we get, then we are able to make improvements as we implement the plan for the development and the socio-economic transformation of the country.
Thank you.
So I appeal to the public that kindly cooperate with all the processes, the activities of the Bureau at the local level where you are. Be available whenever called upon, and please give accurate information. There has been a tendency by the public to usually suspect, especially now we have talked about the national population and housing census. There are always rumors that are circulated that you see they will use the statistics for purposes of taxation, for purposes of knowing how much land you own, and for purposes of knowing how many children you own, and it could be a problem on you. No.
Right.
The technical team has assured all of us that these are just collected for purposes of the statistics, and they are all aggregated. So there is no knowing that in the results that the Bureau releases, it will not be said that Charles Olen is known for this. No, you just exist as a statistic. So right. I would like to appeal to the public that we cooperate with all the activities of the Bureau at the grassroots. And of course,
thank you.
The district leaders should take keen interest in implementing and supporting the implementation of these activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charles. I'm also aware that you are with the Deputy Kao in Soroti, Jen Akirol, as well as the Kao of Serere, Bukona Sajabi. I might not have time for them to say a lot. Maybe I'll give them an opportunity just to come and greet Uganda. You're live on national TV and want to take note of your presence. So if I can ask maybe one of them just come and say good afternoon to Uganda, and so we can thank them for the great job that they are doing, and then we'll move on, because I need to move around the entire country. We've got a lot of district leaders, and in the interest of time, I definitely want to be able to have an opportunity to get the Honorable Minister to say something to us. So if we can ask the Kao and the Deputy Kao, maybe just to greet Uganda, and then we'll move on to the rest of the country.
Yes, thank you very much. Acting Deputy Kao Soroti, and I must say that you're very visible in Uganda as UBOS, and we are grateful that you have been involved in this kind of very important activity. But as districts, we have a few concerns and challenges that we are experiencing, especially in administrative data, where we have capacities for collecting, managing, and analyzing the data. Sometimes the data that is collected is limiting and also is insufficient. In other areas, there is still missing information on key indicators. We are looking about the challenges of economies of Uganda, where we lack information. It becomes very difficult for us to talk about development, decision-making, and planning for the communities.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I know that we have a lot of cows and district leaders that have made time to be with us today. Unfortunately, because of time, I might not be able to have every one of them come and say something. What I will do eventually is ask Dunstan Valaba to probably speak on their behalf at some point. I will come to you, but in the meantime, let me just quickly go around and start in Masaka and hear from one of our board members, Madame Rosette, to say something. We'll then check in with Dr. Robert Wamala in Arua, and then we'll wrap up with Bernard in Iganga, one of our board members as well, and then we will have Dunstan Valaba represent the rest of our district leaders, and then our ED will invite the minister to wrap up for us. So we'll start over in Masaka. If you could kindly just come, and we'll try and encourage you to try and keep it to under a minute if you can, so we can be able to move around the country very quickly. You're welcome, Rosette.
Okay, good afternoon, fellow Ugandans. I welcome you to this e-conference of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, and thank you for actively being with us. This is a very good platform because the national statistics system cannot go ahead without the collaboration of all of us. So as you've heard, we are undertaking a number of activities. However, these activities cannot be successful without your support. So whatever the data we collect can only inform decisions effectively when you give us correct information, and you will heard that it is always aggregated. So it is my humble appeal to request all of you that in all these activities we are undertaking, you support us for the purpose of our development for the country as a whole. I thank you so much, and thank you for participating in this conference.
Thank you very much, Madame Rosette. Let's move very quickly to Arua, where we have Dr. Robert Wamala. Professor Wamala, I should say. You're very welcome. If we can have them get ready. I'll probably come back to you since you're not ready yet. Let me go quickly to Iganga, where we have some representatives there, and then from there we'll come back to you in Guru before we bring in the minister. So Moses Bukenya in Iganga, you're very welcome if you're ready. We can hear from you. I also know we have Paddington Pangwech in Gulu. Thank you so much for joining us on the call. Again, because of time, not everyone might be able to speak, but we definitely honor your presence, and we thank you for joining us today. So let's hear from Iganga.
Thank you, moderator. Moses Bukenya Seguya, Chief Administrative Officer, Iganga. Basically, talk about the role of the local leadership in this exercise is basically in 3 phases. There is
Mr. Bukenya, the network seems to be an enemy of your progress, and so we'll try and see if we can come to you. Again, want to say recognition for our cow Chotera.
Have the mindset of this Uganda.
Yeah, sorry, we're having a problem with the network. The cow in Chotera, Mr. Bwayo and Mr. Kamara, Rakai, Masaka, it's good to see you on the call. You're very welcome. We thank you for joining us. We've got Mr. Batieneto, who is the district chairman for Masaka. It's good to know that you're with us as well. And again, time is very strongly against us. I'm going to hand over to our ED to welcome the Honorable Minister who is joining us from Kabarole. And we need him to be able to say something to the country about this very important exercise that we are undertaking. And then, if time allows, we'll try and go back around the country to hear from our district leaders. We know you've traveled far for many of you, and you've killed your entire morning to be with us, and we don't take that for granted. And your country honors you for your service. But again, please do bear with us. It's no offense to you, just that we have to be able to manage time, which has not been our very good friend this morning. Dr. Muchiza, if you would please do us the honors of inviting the Honorable Minister to address the country.
It's my humble request to call upon the Minister responsible for statistics, Honorable Amos Rugorovi, to give remarks on the government side about this e-conference and activities being undertaken. Honorable Minister, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Executive Director. My name is Amos Rugorovi, the Minister of State in charge of planning in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. The issues relating to statistics are matters that come under my portfolio, along with planning of the country. Planning has got to be evidence-based, just as policy formulation is policy-based, evidence-based. The term evidence-based is referring to what you have in terms of statistics in order to take a decision or to guide a decision. The cabinet will sit every Monday to make policies. But these policies have to be informed by the statistics behind them. Now, the Uganda Bureau of Statistics was established to ensure that we collect accurate data, we process that data, we analyze it, and we make it available to the users. Now, this is a huge exercise, coordinating the entire country in the production of these statistics. So we really needed the likes of an agency like the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to be able to do this. Secondly, we have to remember that this information has got to be standardized in a manner that you are able to benchmark with other countries, you're able to compare with other countries. For example, we have a key indicator in terms of economic growth called the GDP, the gross domestic product, or the gross national income. When you talk about the GDP of Uganda, GDP of Kenya, GDP of the United States, those figures must be based on the same standards. So you need an agency that is capable of standardizing the procedures for generating statistics. And that is very important. So if you don't have an organized institution like UBOS, certainly you're going to end up with data that is not credible and cannot be benchmarked with other figures. Now, to generate such statistics, you need to build capacity. of the individuals that collect these statistics, that analyze these statistics, that disseminate these statistics, but also the users of these statistics. Many people get confronted with these indicators and they begin wondering what it means to them. For example, if you talk about the consumer price index, someone may not understand. So the user have to be told that you get the user consumer price index in order to determine the level of inflation in the country. And based on this consumer price index, the CPI, the Bank of Uganda is able to address any challenges associated with inflation, to take decisions, critical decisions, such as whether to raise the interest, the CPI or not. Right now we are experiencing an inflationary situation, and such information is very critical for us to be able to monitor whether inflation is going up or down. The Bureau has a very important role to play in that process, collecting data across the country about prices of various commodities. So capacity building on the part of the individuals that collect statistics, those that use the statistics, and those that analyze statistics becomes very important. The third point is the one of cooperation, coordination, rationalization, and partnerships that you need in the collection of these statistics. The Bureau on its own cannot establish a system for data collection. When we talk about the National Statistical System, we're actually talking about the Bureau working with other agencies across government, from top downwards. All these assist the Bureau in terms of collecting statistics. So it has a role to coordinate all these efforts, all these institutions, to educate them about the standards that are required, and to establish systems, including online systems that they will use to collect and transmit that information for purposes of processing. So the Bureau is actually the focal point for this cooperation, planning cooperation in terms of the producers and users and processors and users of statistics. The Bureau, according to the law, because the Bureau is established by the UBOS Act, is the official source of statistical information. Nobody in Uganda can claim the responsibility of declaring any statistical number. It has got to be the Bureau, otherwise we'll be having contradictory figures. For example, what is the population of Uganda? That mandate is